Hello everyone and welcome to Diamonds and Craft, where I make things. My name is Sarah and I do apologise for being away for so long, but I am back. I had a little bit of burnout and I took a break for a little while, but I was still working on and off on dolls, just not quite as intensely. I am back though with the winner of the 50k giveaway that I did on YouTube. To celebrate getting to 50,000 subscribers, I did a little bit of a giveaway competition. I had people comment on their favorite video of mine what they would like to see me make, and I had some really good suggestions. It was quite difficult to choose a winner, but I chose Abyss Dragon's suggestion of Kaeya from Genshin Impact. So without much more waffling on from me, I will show you how I made him. First of all, I am using this hunter doll as the base. He may not be a classic anime build, but I think he's gonna look good in the end. He was real grim, so dirty. But as usual, I removed the dirt and grime and factory paint with acetone. For some reason, I wanted these seams off. Not that they'll be seen at all, but it is a good habit to get into. The difference between a sanded body and not is quite special. Now, I did shrink his head off camera and I let the head dry on the neck. One problem with doing that is any leftover acetone is going to melt the plastic on the neck. But it did need to be smaller anyway, so I'll be sanding it down. Also, his jaw is too square. I did round it off, and admittedly I could have gone a little more extreme, but I already had a nightmare with the shrunken face. You'll see that in the next video. Anime faces are not my favourite, not because I don't like them, but because they're so very difficult to get right. Try number 1 didn't work. His eyes were much too small, so I'll be getting rid of those and trying again. The eyes are never going to be full anime eyes, but I did want to capture the essence of it. It was a challenge for sure. I had better luck with the second try, but ultimately I thought I could do much better. Sometimes things just take a few tries for you to get into the groove. So try number 2 was also a no-go. By this point, I felt like I had a much better grip on how to approach his face. His face shape isn't 100% anime, as we know, so his eyes won't be just to keep a theme. I want them to look a good mixture between anime and my own style. It's just a very fine balance, and yeah, sometimes it just takes a while to find it when you're out of your comfort zone. I'm adding a lot more white highlights to these eyes. I like adding them in anyway to make the eyes really pop. I feel like more exaggerated ones help this look more cartoony. I won't lie, even after this try, I wanted to redo his face. However, that is because I know this guy isn't staying with me, and I'm even more highly critical of myself. I did have to remind myself that he's looking great, and his new owner will hopefully be very happy with him as he is. I did realize his pupils were diamond shaped, so I went back and fixed that off camera before I added all the highlights and catchlights. And that is his face all done with. One other challenge I needed to overcome was finding colour matches to his clothes and hair. I had these 2 nylon hair colours, both really good, but ever so slightly off in colour. It wasn't until I spoke to my best good friend Lemon Kitten Creations, and she gave me some yarn that she had. It was absolutely perfect. So I got to work on that right away. I made a wig cap so that once I was done with the hair, I could remove it for when I was making his clothes. I will glue it down later. This process needed to be done step by step, almost strand by strand. It's also really awkward to film from this top-down view, but I'll run you through how I managed it. I took the yarn wefts and curled them around a large pen for bigger curls, and it's only to hold the shape whilst I cut. Once again, anime hair is gravity defiant, and I had to curl and style the hair as I went. Hairspray is my absolute best friend with these hairstyles. It just keeps everything where it needs to be. Once I get to the top, I add his little blue strip in the front. And it looks like I didn't film anymore, so that's that now. Onto the clothes. I actually started with his cape. I had bought some thin foam and thought that it would hold its shape better than fabric. One thing I should mention is that I have zero clue about what kinds of fabrics are actually in use with this whole outfit. So I went with the easiest options for everything. So that's where I'm at right now. I used a template to get the shape right, and I drew that straight onto the foam, along with the design that was on there. Once they were all cut out, I used a white paint marker to colour the trim and design on the bottom part. The top has a sort of gradient to it, and to achieve this I took really watered down acrylic paint and applied it like watercolour. I blotted the colour with a cotton pad and repeat that to build the pigment up slowly. Then, to paint the design on this, I used paint and a brush because my marker was a bit too big and bulky. After the success of painting these designs on one part, I was emboldened to do the same on the actual clothing. I drew out a pattern of what I thought would work and used fray check along the edges before I even cut them out. My plan is to avoid hemming at all costs, as these clothes have pretty unique shapes. As in, they're not straight lines, and I always have trouble hemming something that is not in a straight line. I just want this to look as perfect as I can get it. Then, once it was cut out, I painted the trim white and then a lighter blue over the top. It is safe to say that I was not satisfied with the result. So I bought myself many colours of vinyl and spent some time trying to make the pattern on the computer to cut out with my Cricut. I did also order custom fabric with the right colour printed on them for each part of the clothes. And yeah, this approach was much better than the last. I had quite a time trying to figure out what piece of clothing actually attached to one another. So I started making a shirt, but I found that what I thought was a shirt was probably not. Anyway, I took the approach of layers. This may not be what he's wearing exactly, but it is how it all looks in the end, and that's what's important. So I made him a sort of jumpsuit, which I attached his pants to. Those pants had a weird waistline, and attaching them was the only solution that I had. All the while, I'm creating the shapes he has all over him into vinyl transfers and applying them as needed. Then the vest and shirt are attached in such a way to reduce bulk and maximize style. I had to attach two pieces together with hemming tape, which is an absolute game changer, by the way. Then I ironed on the embellishments with vinyl, so it looked like this. All that needs to happen now is for me to glue this to the inside of the vest, and voila! His collar is also separate, and I added gold vinyl to the edges. A quick quick skip over to his hands now. I needed to paint these because there was just no way I could make teeny tiny complicated gloves. I drew on the diamond part and painted that gold, then the rest of the glove black. To make those gold bits stand out a little more, I added some UV nail resin and buffed in some chrome powder to make it shiny. And I cleaned up the edges as best I could, and I will be sealing that with varnish later. To cover the joints, I used a Sharpie because that usually doesn't get chipped off. Now that I have all of the clothes made, I can start to assemble him and add some of the hardware he has. He has gold studs going up one leg, which I attach with gem tack, and then I need to make the lapels of his jacket. I also have no idea what constitutes as the jacket, so I'm just making them separate pieces. Again, none of these clothes make sense to me, and it's just a case of figuring out where to put things so they won't be in the way. But they'll be in the right place in the end. I add the gold vinyl trim to these, having cut this myself. I could have done this using the Cricut, but there were just some things I'd rather do by hand. I add the collar to the jumpsuit for ease of keeping things where they should, and I fix it in place with this tiny resin buckle that I made, as I do not have anything pre-made in this shape. I am adding this silver thread to the jumpsuit for those little details I couldn't really get with the Cricut. And I have some silver nail art gems that will do the trick for whatever the heck this is on his tummy. His sleeve cuffs were made as a separate entity. Imagine trying to pull this right way out when you make the sleeves. Jeez. I'm attaching it much the same way I did for Jack Sparrow, with glue and a prayer. There are a lot of details with these cuffs, so I decided to wrap a little piece of cord in the same fabric the vest is made out of. Then I can glue that and cover up the seam of the cuff. Sadly, I didn't have little nail art gems for every piece of hardware on this guy, so I made these out of clay, covered them in the same UV nail resin and buffed them with the gold chrome powder. I did this for almost every bit of metal on him, including those tiny studs on his pants. It is what is known here in England as a ball ache. To make the belt embellishments, I actually did have more nail art gems that would have worked well, but they were the wrong type of blue and gold. So I took an impression of the one I wanted to use and cut the clay into the right shape. Did my thing with the UV and the chrome and added blue mica powder to some UV top coat to make the right blue for the gem. I can now glue that to his belt. I cut the right shape out of vinyl onto the belt, and wouldn't you know it, I put on some UV and chrome to make it stand out a little. Once I'm ready, I can just glue this together. I did make the little ankle gems and his earring the same way as the big belt gem. And since I can avoid it no longer, I have to make him some shoes. I am gluing these directly onto him to save me pain. But first I need some shapes ironed on before I assemble them. The faux leather hated the heat, so I had to cut around the stencil to avoid an unmelted part. It worked out okay because the heat made the leather more pliable and nicer to look at. I just glue that piece onto the foot, slide in the sole and glue it all down. Then for the outer sole, I take my foam and paint it gold. And cover it in UV and buff in that gold chrome. The cuffs on the top are glued on separately, like the sleeves. And I didn't film the rest of this, sadly, but I'll show you them finished later on. Kaeya has this little piece of fabric on his left shoulder. Not sure of its function other than to balance out his design, but I had to paint on the really small details after applying the vinyl. I did think I had no suitable vinyl for these parts, so I did paint them on as well. However, I found some suitable vinyl after the fact, but these are hidden well anyway, so I feel like that's not the worst thing to happen. It took me a hot minute to remember that I can instruct my Cricut to cut things that are thicker than vinyl. So I used the packaging from my Posca markers to make the little pendant on his belt. I covered the middle in UV resin and buffed on the same blue mica powder we used in the jewellery earlier. I did cut out a little snowflake out of the vinyl, but left it on the backing because when I cover that in resin it won't be seen anyway. I did colour this silver instead of gold, but that's fine. At this point, I was checking off my mental list of things I still needed to make, and his pauldrons were one of the last ones. I made these from Warbler, foam and clay gems. I glued them all together before painting them, then, as it's literally been my favourite thing to do, covered it in UV and buffed it out. It worked really well to do this all together because the resin makes it look like it's all made out of one piece of metal. I made a bunch of teeny tiny fiddly things to attach to his lapels. Then the final piece was making the gold trim his cape appears to be attached to. Foam, clay and UV resin have been my absolute best friends this project, and it really has worked out so nicely. This piece fits so nicely underneath those pauldrons you'd think I'd done it on purpose. I will show you all the little pieces. His shoes turned out marvellously. Gloves and sleeve cuffs adorned beautifully. Pendant, wrong colour, but it's still nice. Shiny gold things everywhere. And his cape. I think with all of that, we can call him done. And here he is, all finished. I keep saying that this is probably the best doll that I have ever made. But he had to be perfect. He had to be completely perfect for me to be happy enough to send him away. So I will get him sent off to Abyss Dragon. Thank you for commenting such a good suggestion. Maybe I'll do some more Genshin Impact characters. Who knows? It was very complicated. It was a challenge, for sure. All of the little bits and pieces and, you know, trying to figure out where everything was attached was... Whew! Let me know what you thought of him down in the comments below. Remember though, don't be a dick. Don't make me say it again. Like this video if you really want to do that. Subscribe if you also want to do that. And ring my bell if you do either of those things. I'm in collabs until the end of the year, so hopefully I will be able to post those on a set date. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for taking part in the 50k giveaway. If you did, don't worry, you might get a chance in the future, depending on how many subscribers I get, what milestones I hit. I will see you in the next one. Bye! Genshin Impact. What a game. What a time to be alive.